This is the DIY Artist Route Podcast, a journey into what it takes to take your music or creative project to the right people, build your tribe of superfans, and growth farm for real, lasting success. Hi, I'm D. Grant Smith. Thanks for joining me. Today, we're joined by someone who shares a lot of similarities with me and who is one of the coolest people in the world to talk with, Jon Nastor. He's the author and podcast host of Hack the Entrepreneur. His book is outstanding. His podcast is even better. He gets into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to really build something that connects with people, grows success, and impacts the world. He and I have connected with several of the same people, and Jon is also a punk rock drummer, which makes him even cooler in my book. I pretend to play drums sometimes in a few side bands, but Jon got his start in music as a drummer, and he shares the wisdom and the gospel of punk rock with us. We'll jump on the route with Jon and learn why sometimes small works better than big in terms of growth and vision, what it means to hack your success, and 3 ways to create big wins for your work coming up in 1 minute. First, today's podcast is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built for musicians, by musicians, Bandzoogle makes it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system will get you online in minutes. Choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes, then customize your design with Bandzoogle's easy point-and-click editor. Plus, all the features you need for a professional website are already built in. Sell your music and merch commission-free right on your website. Build your fan list and send professional newsletters using the mailing list tool. Pull in content from all of your online services, including Twitter, Instagram, and SoundCloud. Get live support from their musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans start at just $10 a month, including free registration of your own custom domain. That's right, you don't get a subdomain from somebody else's platform, you get your own custom domain. Go to bandzoogle.com and try it free for 30 days and use the promo code DIYPOD or DIYPOD to get 15% off the first year of any Bandzoogle subscription. Do it right now at bandzoogle.com. Musicians, you are an entrepreneur. I said that in the previous episode with Rachel Yamagata, but if you haven't embraced your entrepreneurialness or your entrepreneurship, go ahead and do it. Today, you're going to learn how to growth hack your success as an entrepreneur with Jon Nastor. If you aren't a musician and you already are an entrepreneur, a startup, or a business owner, today you're going to get some outstanding help building a stronger business. Are you ready to get started? Good. Lace up those shoes and let's hit the DIY artist route. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think I saw. I'm always trying to go back and remember, like, where was it that I saw somebody? So for you, I think I saw you were a recommendation on Twitter for somebody I should follow. And usually what I do is I will hover my mouse over the person's name so that it brings up the little preview of their profile.
Oh, right.
And if I see that there's some similarities or something that is kind of like unique or something that I want to ask about, then that's what leads me to click over to the profile and then read. I read as much as I can, and then I'm like, okay, is this somebody I want to follow? Yes. Click the follow button, and then send the tweet and just kind of start trying to make conversations. I talk about that all the time with how musicians should do that when they want to reach out to somebody instead of sending them the private message on Twitter and start pitching their stuff right away. But with you, I saw your book, and I clicked over to the link, your hacktheentrepreneur.com/book, and I started reading up on your stuff, and I was like, holy cow, I have to talk to Jon Nastor. Like, this is, there's
Nice.
so much good stuff in here that, like, getting your insights and your perspectives on what you've done, and then, it turning out that we both play drums, and we both play similar styles of drums, and we have some other similarities in common. I just wrote and published a book that's about growth hacking radio, and you've written a book about growth hacking, being an entrepreneur in a variety of different spaces. So all these different similarities, like, just kind of bleed over into us being good people to talk with each other.
Awesome, man. I love it.
I want to start kind of off by talking about you. Tell us just a little bit of your background and your musical history and all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up playing in punk rock bands. So started when I was, I guess, about 14 years old, which was a long time ago now. And went on tour with my first band when I was 18, I believe I was, or 17. Honestly, I can't remember. But I remember it was the very last day of exams in grade 11 for me. And everybody was just like wrapping up their exams and going out like to the back to like smoke cigarettes or whatever they were doing and just hang out. And there was a van there waiting for me with all my stuff already in it, and just got in it. And then we traveled across the country, and it was really, really, really awesome. I don't know if I ever passed that exam, to tell you the truth, but that's what sort of happened. And then a few years went by, and then I ended up moving across the country with another band, doing the whole living out of a van for a while, traveling a lot, playing a lot. It was fun. And then the band just fell apart, and I started some businesses offline, and then did that for a couple of years and got tired of having to. I had a daughter at this point. She was just born, and I got tired of leaving the house and having to go places I didn't want to be for long periods of time. So we were living out in Vancouver at the time. I owned a business in construction, actually. And so we lived in the city, but all the work was out in the suburbs. So every day was like 2-hour commutes, then like 8 and 10-hour days. So it was just gone for too long. And I was like, I have to figure out a change to this. So I started exploring the whole internet thing. And it took me a few years to sort it out, but now I've been 5 years full time on the internet, awesome. Just making my living with different things here and there, being a digital entrepreneur, as they say, and I still play in 2 bands.
Awesome. So, in when you were in high school and you were playing with these bands, what was the years that this was going on?
Oh, this is 97.
Awesome. What were
98, 99?
What were the names of your bands?
The first band I went on tour with is called Head Cramp. Okay. And then I ended up moving with a band across the country with a band called The Dinks.
I've heard of The Dinks.
Yeah, we've been on, it's actually a song on Spotify I found the other day. It was on just like a compilation. It was kind of cool when I was listening to Spotify. But yeah, so those are 2 bands, but that was a long time ago. But yeah. In
the late 90s, I was getting into punk too. And so I wasn't good enough of a drummer to play in the one punk band in my high school, because I went to a small school. But and the guys that were in that band were pretty awesome in the Houston area. But yeah, so as soon as I saw punk drumming, I'm like, okay, I've got to ask him these questions. So who are you playing with now?
I'm with a band called Secret Baby, and I'm with another band which is just a 2-piece kind of like metalish outfit called Alienator.
Ooh, I might have.
Yeah, we just did actually like a real pro recording of 2 songs, Alienator and Secret Baby. We're actually just in the studio right now. So I'm actually going back there tonight to do some more tracks. And we're putting down 8 songs.
Awesome. Well, when we're done talking podcast stuff, we'll talk. I'll ask you some radio stuff and want to hear your stuff for potential use on my radio show.
Sure.
Awesome. So let's talk just a minute about your book, Hack the Entrepreneur. From what I have observed and honestly have not read all the way, but what I have observed and read about your book, it's an exploration of what it takes to win in business in the entrepreneurial space. And you have done something that's really cool, and I kind of want to ask about that a little bit later on too, which is taking the voices of people that you've connected with your podcast and with your platform and those conversations and put all that stuff together in one compiled resource for how to growth hack business. I'm using the term growth hacking. I'm sure there's probably some musicians listening right now that are like, what is this dude talking about? So with your interpretation and your experience, can you kind of give us a Cliff Notes version of what that term means?
I don't even really know what growth hacking means, but but let's just say like 2 years ago, I started the podcast. I had never interviewed anyone in my life. I live currently still in like a tiny, tiny city, literally in the middle. Like you have to get on a plane for 2 hours to get to another city. And I had a software business that allowed me some time, and I wanted to talk to some smart people about business and kind of explore their brains. And so I thought if I just try and reach out, they probably won't talk to me, but if I'm doing a podcast, they will. So I figured out how to interview people, but it's grown now. So 250 episodes in, to me, like what being an entrepreneur has grown from, it's not just about creating like General Motors or Facebook or whatever. It's some massive thing. To me, it's literally the creation of something out of nothing. And that now I've brought into encompass art and music and a podcast or a blog, whatever it is. If you just have an idea and you put it onto paper, onto like magnetize it on a tape, whatever it happens to be, a digital format, and put it out into the world, to me, that's the creation of something out of nothing and is entrepreneurship. So Hack the Entrepreneur, the book, is how to stop procrastinating, because it's essential to do anything. To build a business so that you can have freedom and time to do stuff when and where you want to, which to me is the ultimate goal of any business. It's not just to build massive things, it's to build freedom, sort of allowing things, and then to do work that matters. And the work that matters to me is not the same work that might matter to you, and it's not the same work that might matter to you listening. And that doesn't matter. It's for us to sort of explore it and find that work that matters. But usually need a business around it, because you can't be working all the time. Otherwise, you can't explore those kinds of things. And so people get stuck on all the different aspects of business and entrepreneurship. So I had interviewed 200 people. I broke it down to 50 of those people, and then I broke it into categories. So there's 10 for each category that sort of the conversation explored a topic. And so it's either getting started, which is the first section, to mindset, which to me is the ultimate of any of it. Then onto business ideas and how to sort of explore them. Then being wrong, which we obviously have to learn to overcome, because I'm wrong constantly throughout the day. And if I let that stop me, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am today. And then the last section of the 5 is growth, which is then if you want to build that thing into something bigger than yourself, there's 10 sort of great ideas and execution steps to kind of do that with your business and your ideas.
Awesome. Well, I noticed in just looking through your podcast, and I've got several episodes in my queue now that I need to finish listening to, but you and I have talked to some of the same people, which was also another reason why I'm like, I've got to talk to this guy. But Seth Godin and Tom Giles, Derek Webb, Kevin Kelly, among others. What was kind of the thing that led you to decide who you wanted to speak with? Why did you want to talk to these people in particular?
And again, this has evolved as well, because I'm 250 episodes in, right? 2 years. So when I first started, I literally, the weekend I decided to start it, without interviewing anyone in my life, I wrote down 30 people that I wanted to talk to. I've spent my whole life sort of fascinated with entrepreneurs and business and just the idea of being able to create these things for ourselves and for the world. And so instantly I knew 30 people that I wanted. And so I just wrote that list right out. And those are the people I started with. Some of them, like Seth Godin, I actually didn't get to interview till I think like episode 60 or 70, because he turned me down during that first summer before I had launched the show, which was cool though. But then, I mean, he also said yes later, and he also like wrote the blurb on the back of my book, which is really cool. So it was kind of just sticking to it. But then it's really now around episode 150, that's when I really started to see these similarities, but then explore taking entrepreneurship further than just actual quote unquote traditional businesses, which was taking it into art, taking it into music, and sort of that merging of either music or art and commerce, and turning those into businesses. That's where like Tom Giles and those people come into play. I mean, Kevin Kelly, a brilliant writer and thinker of just completely, to me, like brilliant and off the wall stuff, but he's created an amazing career out of it, but not your traditional quote unquote business. He doesn't have employees. He doesn't have an office as in that sort of sense. But he's created a brilliant sort of life for himself around this business, and to me around entrepreneurship. So it's evolving way more towards that now, and to getting sort of artists and people doing things. But I still interview like quote unquote business people, but it's not just that anymore.
So on the subject of getting and this is going to tie into something else, but I spend a lot of time in both on this podcast, but in just the music media realm, talking with folks about how to not just build audience, but how to network and how to build relationships. And from my experience, you have to go about doing things differently than what is being done by most people to get the attention and the interest of folks like Tom Giles and Derek Webb and Kevin Kelly and Seth Godin to say, not even to just say yes to you, but to have the conversation in general. So what did you do, or what steps have you taken that are practical that you would suggest other people do who want to not just get their work in front of somebody, but they want to make that kind of connection?
You're right. You have to be unique in some way, and everyone, including myself, overthinks this, and I did overthink this before, meaning that I tried to create something unique. And when I got rid of all of that nonsense and just made it me, like a dude with a daughter and a wife who loves to play drums in punk rock bands, loves to build stuff for the internet, and likes to travel the world with his family. It's literally just who I am. There's nothing else there. It's just me. And the more it was just, I would just talk about what I do and what I think, not what I thought was sort of strategically the right thing to do, which I don't know if I did that maybe like on purpose, you know what I mean? Or like, it was sort of like inadvertently how I did it before, I think, where I thought I knew how I had to enter a market if I was like launching new software or something. But it didn't work to build the audience because there wasn't that personal connection. And that personal connection isn't, well, it is to something very, very unique. And that something unique is just you. And this sounds overly simplified, but it really is that. And so to me, I get so much satisfaction out of Hack the Entrepreneur because it's literally just me. I in no way pretend to be anything that I'm not. I go off on rants on the show. I repeat myself. I'll say ums and ahs. It doesn't matter. It's my show. And I mean, millions of people have listened to the show at this point. So it works. And it's not because I'm smarter than anybody, or it's not because I know how to interview better, because I don't. I didn't even know how to interview anyone in my life. It's just I'm fascinated by the conversations. I allow myself to be sort of part of it. And I'm not afraid to talk about and put myself just into all of it. If I need to curse and swear in my newsletter this week, which oftentimes I do it because that's how I am. That's how I talk. That's how I talk to my 11-year-old daughter. I curse and swear. There's just in like it's just like a happy way of just, that's how I am. And I've learned to just, if I just let that stuff sort of out, it's going to, get rid of lots of people, and that's totally cool. Don't worry, I get emails every Sunday when I send out a newsletter. You keep cursing like this, you're never going to build an audience. Like, okay, well, thanks for that advice, sir. That's really helpful. Delete and just like make sure to hit their unsubscribe for them first. But it's really that. It's like we want a secret to being unique, but it's really within all of us. Like nobody can think like me. Nobody can talk like me. Nobody has the same quirky habits. Nobody likes the same crappy bands in the exact same order that I like them. Nobody's seen the same concerts that I've seen. Nobody's like written the same blog posts that I've written. It's just how it is. Like we are innately unique. I think it gets lost because we overthink it and try and be unique. And you can't really just be that. You just have to just let it out, and sort of the easier it gets to come out and the less you sort of filter yourself and edit yourself. It seems to work better and better and better for me because people relate to even the mistakes better.
Would you say that when we're talking about like kind of like how you and I started our conversation, presenting kind of a almost, you talked a minute ago about how you were interested in the conversation, and that's what fueled you forward. And I'm the same way. So I start off a connection with somebody by asking a question. And I ask a question based on something that I've seen, but I want to know more information about. So really, I'm not necessarily just trying to get them to follow me, but what I'm shooting for is to get that response. And by getting that response, that leads to new things. And in the process of doing all that stuff, then the authenticity and all that can come out. Do you feel that that's kind of one of the things that's sort of missing in the dynamic of the way people try to go about building and growing and all that stuff?
Like they try too hard, you think?
That the collaboration and the conversation is missed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you. I don't use Facebook very often, but when I do go on there, there's probably 50 like friend requests for me to accept, and like every month or so I'll go through and I'll just like accept them all. It's something I've started doing like a year ago. It's like I'm just going to accept everyone because I don't really use it for just family and friend stuff anyways. And every time I do that, at least one person immediately automated message thing like all about themselves and their business and like their affiliate links to stuff. And it's like, really? Like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Like, first of all, I'm completely blocking you. I'm annoyed with you, but I'm just sitting there like trying to put myself in your shoes and think, how is this possibly ever working? But I would never do that to somebody like you who just legitimately reaches out to someone. Like, if there's such a difference and it's so not hard, right? It's like we want everything we do to sort of scale right from the get-go, and there's nothing to scale. You have to take the time to build these relationships. And I mean, if you don't even know where to start, and I'm not really good personally at just reaching out to people on Twitter, and Facebook, those kinds of things. I'm not that good at it. I like when somebody else starts it like you started it with me, but I've put something in place, which is podcasting. I've interviewed 250 people where I've had like really cool conversations for at least half an hour with 250 really smart people that fascinate me in some way. To me, I don't have to reach out to people because at least 3 times a week, I sit down with someone and have a conversation that's being recorded. And in no way do I kid myself and think that those are going to become relationships. But in the 250, I'm going to say 7 of them have become relationships that have completely changed my life and my business up till this point. And I wasn't pushing them or necessarily, but I was making the opportunity for those things to happen by having conversation, by building a platform through it that I could then share and help them in some way in advance by having them on my show and exposing them to my audience. And then things can come from that. To me, that's what I had to do, right? So if you think that certain ways don't work for you, then don't just like, walk away. It's like, well, I guess I can never build an audience. It's just, well, you can. Just figure out a way to do it. Figure out the way that works for you. And just because it doesn't work for me, doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just how you have to do it, right? I mean, honestly, this goes back to when you said how you couldn't play in a punk band back in high school. I mean, when I joined Headcramp, those guys weren't, I was in a tiny high school in a tiny city again. Those guys had all graduated, and one was in college, one was in university already. The other one, I'm not sure what he did. But they were already out of university or out of school and into university. And I had just heard like they were like the big band in the city. I was kind of a terrible drummer at the time, but they had lost their drummer. He moved out of the city. They needed one to go on to this tour. And I just heard like this buzz around the school about all these drummers that were going to try out and they were all going to make it. Some guy was actually sitting beside me telling me about how he'd already been told yes and all this stuff. But I just like reached out to them. I didn't know who they were. And I was like, whatever, like, what do I have to lose? I'm just going to go do it. And then I was the one who got it. And I played with them for like 4 years. Wow. But it's one of those things where if you don't, like put yourself in that position, right? If you don't push it, like I wouldn't be here with you today if I hadn't started a podcast 2 years ago. I could have said, well, I don't know how to interview people. I'm terrible at talking into a microphone. I hate the sound of my own voice. I could have used all those things as excuses, but no, I was just like, no, screw it, man. I want to do this. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out how to do it. So to me, it comes the same way as that. And I think it's when we try and follow what other people do too much because we see it work for someone else that we just do it. And then if it's not, doesn't like sort of like correlate with who we are, or doesn't fit properly. I think we do it too abruptly or just incorrectly. And it just comes off as just weird and off-putting and not social in any way.
That's really good. I really like that. There is a uniqueness to the way that we interact and correspond with each other. And it's funny because I will ask musicians who reach out to me about getting radio airplay on my show, and they're usually not short-winded when it comes to talking about themselves. But I always ask a question, and the question is, what is it that makes you uncommon? And being uncommon is a very big part of my platform, but I'm really curious about that from from a band standpoint. Like, so what is it about you that makes you so unique that I can't do anything else but right now listen to your stuff? And the first thing that people tell me is, well, I'm really unique in my songwriting.
How are you unique?
Yes.
I'm unique. That's
yes.
how I'm unique. The worst elevator pitch ever.
How are you uncommon? Well, I'm unique. Everybody's unique. Get more specific than that. And so, you know, I think what's really cool about the way that you've presented yourself and what makes you unique, Jon, is you haven't told me about your strengths. You've told me about the things that you don't feel very confident at. But at the same time, while you're telling me the things that like you don't necessarily like to do, or when you started out, you didn't really feel like you knew what to do, but you did it anyways, what you told me was you don't let things that hinder other people hinder you. And that is a very, very uncommon thing. And so like being able to describe that in a very honest and authentic way just communicates even more powerfully like, okay, this is even more so somebody that I want to have a conversation with. I'm not just saying that about you, but I'm saying that about like us in general. Like the more clear we can get about like how we can define the things that are being asked of us, it makes those connections happen more readily.
That's true. Yeah, I agree with that.
So one of your recent blog posts talks about, and I don't remember the person you were interviewing, but or you might not have been interviewing anybody, but there was this whole section about being small and why being small is actually what you need to shoot for instead of trying to get huge. And this is kind of this anomaly that so many people, especially in the indie music or music in general, are not really understanding what it means to really win. And so from your own perspective and your words of wisdom and from the path that you've been on, can you kind of put into I guess maybe explain a little bit what it means to win as a small entity and why both musicians and creative entrepreneurs should take this advice about avoiding the whole 1 million follower thing and being cool with being small?
Yeah, for sure. This is another hard one, I think, because we see obviously the people with millions of followers, the people with giant splash sensations, whether they're YouTube stars now or they're Justin Bieber, like with major labels behind them. It doesn't matter. That's kind of what we see as like the whole star system. But it's weird because with business, the post when I wrote it, it was like talking about how we all know like the whole David and Goliath story. And we all know that the audience always cheers for David, right? The small. We're always cheering for the small one. Yet when we start businesses, so often people, and we probably do this with bands too, and I'm just not aware of it as much, but like somebody will email you like a support question or something, and we'll be like, oh, we'll get this to the developer, or we'll get this to the designer, or we'll get this to the boss. And it's all you. But you're trying to pretend that you're something bigger than you are. And we think that that's going to, in our minds, make us appear bigger. And so our people will like us better, which totally is contradictory to the fact that we all go for David every time against Goliath. Yet for some reason, we all want to act like Goliath. And to me, it makes it, again, incongruent with who we are, right? And what we are creating. And whether that's a web app or that's a new album, or that's like a YouTube channel, I think it's when we're talking about being authentic and being yourself, like if you then go and sort of blatantly sort of, I don't want to say lie, but like misconstrue how big you are and make it look like you're bigger than you are, I think you lose that personal connection. And that personal connection, I think we try and lose it because we think that it's only going to be maybe you and I together. It's only one-on-one. It's like, well, no, because the internet allows like me to literally connect with millions of people through my podcast. It's pretty serious, but I'm still doing it on a one-to-one basis. Everything I write, everything I say is for one person because I only really want to talk to that one. And if I talk to that one person well enough and treat them good enough and either like educate them or inspire them or entertain them in some way, there will be that connection personally. And luckily with the internet, that connection can happen amongst 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000. It doesn't make a difference. And it's no bit of different work to me. And so I think we just need to embrace it. In that post, I think I said like proudly wear the badge of independence.
Yeah.
And bravely wave the flag of small. This is another thing that actually came from right at the end of my book that I wrote, which was like, I like my businesses like I like my music, small and fast. No, fast and independent. Sorry, which is what I like. I don't like blockbuster movies. I've never liked the best-selling like albums. I've never liked the concerts that fill arenas. I just don't. I like seeing a show with 250 people. I like my bands that I really, really, really like, and I follow everything they do, and they don't have major labels behind them. It's something that I've just always been into, and the internet's allowing us to find each other easier, to create businesses. Like, and your business, like if I'm talking like somebody like Frank Turner or like Jason Isbell or NoFX for that matter. These are bands that like completely 100% do what they want without major labels around them. They use social media and they use content, which is for the most part always audio, music, or video to accompany the music to share. And then they travel and play their asses off around the world endlessly. And it's something that we need to know, that these people can make amazing livings. We can all make really good livings now. And you're right that like your aunts and your like just people you grew up with might never know that you are a quote unquote star, and you'll never end up on Rolling Stone, and none of that stuff matters. If you're doing the work that you love to do, getting paid well and getting to travel the world and build up an audience that truly like want to consume and like devour and like be moved by everything you create, to me that should be the end goal of what we're all doing at this point. There's enough big stuff out there, and I think that big stuff, I mean, it's obvious actually that big stuff is falling apart and it's not as powerful anymore because we have YouTube, we have SoundCloud, we have iTunes, where we can just put our stuff for free if we want, or with a money tag to it, and we can share this stuff with the world. But that's where it all comes back to building an audience, right? So whether it's for a podcast or for your band or for your new app you want to create, you have to have that sort of unique voice and that authentic self, which is just you. And that you does not come if you're trying to be something that you are not. And usually that means you're trying to be bigger than you actually are.
I want to take everything that you just said and, I don't know, like tattoo it on my arm or something. Because
it'd be a really long tattoo.
or really, really small print. No, you get super extra points for your incredible metaphor of the Davids and Goliaths. That's brilliant, man. And extra bonus points for referencing NoFX. Nobody has done that up to this point. And of course, you know, we're both punk nerds, so I think, you know, that's probably part of the deal. But no, that's and I'm so glad you used that as a reference point, because especially in punk rock, most punk bands are not anybody that anybody's heard of if you start talking like broad scale. And then when you start talking about punk bands that are, you know, commercially successful, if I'm not mistaken, the folks that are actually in the punk scene don't consider those guys to actually be punk. So it's interesting because you can, when you find the right audience and you build the right tribe of people and you build that community, like nothing else that goes on that's huge matters. Like you're actually kind of trying to avoid all that stuff because it just makes things more complicated. But you do the work that matters, like you said a minute ago, and you have fun in the process, and you get to control your own destiny. You know, what you said was spot on.
Having fun in the process, that's a good point to add to it. And I think that probably really helps us with like finding that authenticity. I think when we take ourselves too seriously, and that probably is a big part of trying to act too big, right? Like bigger than we are, to like show from the outside that like we're this big company. It's like you're taking yourself too serious. Like, and it's hard for people to relate to that. It's too stuffy. It's too just, I don't know. It's nonsense. I'm holding myself back. I'm not sure if I can swear on your show. So
I appreciate you doing that. I honestly, shit is the only swear word that anybody has used up to this point, and Amy Schmittauer did it on the most recent episode that I've published. Nice. Have you talked to her?
I haven't yet.
Are you familiar with her?
I am. YouTube, right?
Yeah.
YouTube star, I would say. Somewhat. I mean, in the small way, which we're talking about.
Yeah, I wasn't going to try to take anything away from her. I think what she's doing is brilliant and absolutely necessary. In terms of, video is the new video has been talked about for a long time about how it's going to, transform the way that we do marketing. And it certainly has transformed the way that we do social media, in that I'm finding myself, and all of us are finding ourselves watching things that we otherwise wouldn't care about. But because it's in a video and the feed, and you said you don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, I turn Facebook off of my computer and I turn it off on my phone and go do something else after about 10 minutes, because I know if I don't, even someone with the self-control that I have, I will waste way too much time. But video has transformed all that stuff. And what Amy's done is shown that we can not only create videos that get people's attention, but that benefit their lives, and in the process, like, build a tribe that matters, and do work that matters. And so, I think it would be awesome for you to talk with her, especially about this stuff right here.
I will do that. I'll make a point of it.
Awesome. You're the second podcast person I've talked to today, and you're also the second person that I've talked about her and talking about both of you guys connecting and making that a part of the platform, because it's all this stuff is relevant. All of it's very relevant and very important. I think you've already answered this question. If you have, tell me. Okay, dude, I already said that. If not, then here we go.
I'll do a politician. I'll just make up an answer I want to say.
Oh,
I'll answer a different question.
Yeah, do that. What is the number one mistake that you see musicians and entrepreneurs making as they try to grow?
Overthinking and not starting. It's like, it's got to be the amount of brilliant music, the amount of brilliant art, the amount of cool web apps, amazing podcasts, and wicked like novels and like nonfiction books that exist in people's head as things that should be created and should be shared with the world, but through some fear, personally. Usually it's a personal fear. It's not like an external environmental sort of thing. It's usually all in our damn heads, but we just don't. We don't start. We put it off and we put it off until we either forget the idea, we lose ambition on the idea, or we just convince ourselves that everyone's going to hate it. And to me, that like really, really hurts me inside to think about that going, all of that like brilliance just sort of going unheard. It's like I mean, I put out a book, man, but like I've never thought of writing a book. Last September, like 26th or something, I emailed a friend that I'm going to put out a book, and she was like, "Oh, when's it coming out?" I said, "December 10th, I'm going to launch it." "Oh, what's it about?" "I'm not really sure yet," and I just went for it because I was like, I need to do this. I need to convince myself I can, and I need to do it quick enough that I can't convince myself that this is a terrible idea and that I should not be writing a book. And so I've learned to just do that because I don't want to live with regret, and I don't like that so many people around me live with the regret somewhere inside of them of that book or that album that just never gets released.
That's good, man. That's really good. And really, really impressive that you put all that stuff together in, what was that, like 3 or 4 months?
Just over 2 months, yes. I think it was 10 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
But I mean, I had a designer. I had two brilliant editors. I had like somebody help me launch it. Like to me, it was entrepreneurship, right? So that's where I kind of was coming up with that idea. Before that, like entrepreneurship is this. So I was like, all right, I'm going to treat this like a new software project. So I'm going to bring in, I'm going to put it on Trello. I'm going to put down all the different parts of the book that have to be done, from graphics to launching to promotion to like the end credits, everything. And it's just going to get done one by one by one by one by one. Book did not get written straight through. I don't know if that's how people normally write books. I typically don't write books, but I'm super proud of it. And so I just took it apart and got people in to do parts that like they're better at it than I am and could get it done quick. And that allowed me to do it, man. So I just overcame my own nonsense just so that I could get it out. So
you did networking to launch your project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I built we put together like a small private Facebook group of listeners and newsletter supporters, people that were like my sort of street team. And then we did a thunderclap and I promoted it to my email list. And then we did a huge blitz where I think I did probably 30 podcast interviews from December to January to February. Not including on my show, but like that. Plus, I mean, I have a show with Copyblogger Media called The Showrunner. So there's places where I could promote it through those. And so that's what we did, man. And I've sold way more than I expected to so far, but I'm still a ways off my goal. So,
well, by launching something and you bringing a team of people in it that, as you said, do things that you either don't know how to do or that you don't enjoy doing. I mean, that's what networking is. I know it's a buzzword that too many musicians are like, "Whoa, I don't want to do that stuff. That sounds too serious and too impersonal and too businessy, and I don't want to try to." But I mean, you reached out to other people and brought other people to make that a part of your project, so that you could launch your thing, and you focus only on the stuff that you want to focus on, right?
Yep.
And
absolutely.
And to do that, like, you couldn't do that as an island. You couldn't do that as a loner.
No, and I couldn't have done that if I hadn't have started. If I would have thought about it too much, if you would have been saying all this to me then, like last August at this time, I would have just been like, "Oh, that's too much. I can't do that. I can't." And I wouldn't have a book right now. So I didn't. To me, that's it. If you have these ideas, they come in the shower or you're walking your dog, whatever it is, just take action. What's the worst that can happen? No one's going to care. No one's going to read it. No one's going to listen to it. Well, guess what? They're not going to read it or listen to it if you don't ever put it out either. So really, you're not any better off. And unfortunately, you have to suck at first at everything you do. I don't care what that is. Listen to my first 50 podcasts. That was terrible. But I kept doing it and people kept listening. I don't know why, but they did, right? I mean, my first book, I'm really, really proud of it, but I'm sure in 10 years I'll look back and be like, oh, my third book was much better. And I have no idea what my second book's going to be, but I'm sure I'll do it because why not? It's fun. It's cool. It kind of blows my mind that I have a book. Whenever somebody reminds me of it again, like, oh yeah, I do have a book. That's cool. And like 7,000 people have bought it already. That's pretty
Congratulations,
awesome.
Man. That's super awesome.
So yeah, man, that's to me, that's the one thing, man. It's people stop. They don't even stop. They just don't start because they just convince themselves not to.
Jon, you are an uncommon and remarkable person, and those are the two things that the two qualities I aspire to be. But you have shown me, and before we even had a conversation, that you were already that. And so thank you for reaffirming that and confirming it. And thank you so much for your knowledge and your insight and your honesty on this episode of the DIY Artist Route.
Absolutely my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Jon Nastor, author, podcast host, drummer, and all-around badass dude. His book, Hack the Entrepreneur, is a must-have if you want real, practical insights into how successful entrepreneurs build, grow, and win. Get more on Jon at hacktheentrepreneur.com. His book is also available on Amazon. Growing connections, starting small, and using a punk rock principle for building superfans is part of the growth farming framework, which is detailed in the DIY Musicians Radio Handbook. Get your paperback copy now at dgrantsmith.com/books. The Kindle version is available on Amazon.com, and the audiobook is coming soon on Audible. Our theme song is called Tryin' from Timothy Palmer's Half Boy EP. Timothy is a fantastic artist with a ton of heart and a powerful message to his songwriting. Get more of it on iTunes. Jon Nastor and I just talked about being selective and focused on a specific group of people. That means our attention and our community includes select folks that we have a real connection with. Go tell that group of people in your world about this podcast, about Jon Nastor, and about the one big takeaway you got from this episode. Whether you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, my website, or anywhere else, share the link to where you heard it. And give these people your love too. Seriously, that's the biggest and most important thing that we can share every day. It makes everyone's garden grow. Thanks for doing that. Join in the growth farming with me by following me at dgrantsmith.com. There's a ton of tips insights into building your work, growing your audience, and becoming a more whole human being. I live to help you grow and see you win. So join me once again at my website, dgrantsmith.com. We'll pick up again next time with a new journeyman to teach us more about how to grow as artists and creative entrepreneurs. I'm D. Grant Smith, your friend and fellow farmer, and I'll see you next time here on the DIY Artist Route.